Warning, in this podcast episode, we discuss dark themes such as homicide, self-harm, and SA. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Full of Paranormal BS.
I'm Colin, and I'm a believer.
I'm Jess, and I'm a skeptic. And after that last episode, I think we need a vacation.
Yes, someplace on the West Coast, sunny and warm.
And full of mystery and death.
Well, join us as we check into a hotel.
The Cecil Hotel, that is.
Where terribly tragic history has affected its guests, and maybe the hotel itself. Now, let's turn on the spirit box and chat with some ghosts. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to press this button right here, and we're going to turn on. You're going to hear a lot of static.
Can I make a song request?
That's not what this does.
It doesn't?
No, we're going to chat with some ghosts.
So we don't get music?
Why would you get music with this? Wait, want to hear Britney come in and say, I'm Britney, bitch? Like, no.
Oh my God, yeah. Can we do that?
She's not dead.
Oh, right.
Story of the Cecil Hotel begins not with a single haunting, but with a history of documented tragedy. Opened in 1927 in downtown Los Angeles, the hotel's reputation shifted over decades as it became linked to crime, suicide, and violence. In 2013, the death of 21-year-old Elisa Lam brought global attention to the building. After disappearing during her stay, she was later found in a rooftop water tank. Surveillance footage of her behaving erratically in an elevator fueled widespread speculation. The Los Angeles County coroner ultimately ruled her death an accidental drowning, noting bipolar disorder as a significant factor. With confirmed violent incidents, serial killer connections, and decades of dark headlines, the Cecil has become a symbol of both human tragedy and modern myth. So the question remains, is the Cecil Hotel truly haunted, or has its reputation turned real-world neglect and loss into something supernatural? Now, my first question for you is, do you think the Cecil is cursed or just a place scarred by tragedy?
You know, I will say I do think it's cursed. I do. You know, in response to that, I feel I kind of take it back to Stephen King when he wrote Rose Red. One of his first lines is that some places are just born bad, and it has to deal with the land of where things came from. And I feel that with the tragedy that surrounds the Cecil Hotel, of everything that has happened in it, it has left an imprint physically on it. I think there is a bad energy there, whether that stems from things that have happened in the place, such as the murders, such as the suicides, all of that. It has left its imprint there. And I do think there's not really getting rid of that. I think it's there. It's permanent. It's a scar.
Well, I don't think it's cursed.
Shocking.
I know. Total shocker. But I don't think it's cursed. I think that it's in an unfortunate location for sure. And I think because of that, what the original builders wanted it to be and, you know, what they hoped it would be, it was never going to become that because of just what happened simply in the area itself.
Yeah, but they didn't think to themselves that, you know, time is going to evolve. Like, they built this place without a parking lot because people didn't have cars. And they didn't think that at that time, the industry that was starting to make cars were going to be like, okay, well, maybe we should have a parking lot, or maybe we should adapt to things. I don't think they built it in the sense, well, okay, one, let's look at the fact that they built it because of the location itself. It was primetime real estate.
Yeah, they wanted it to be like a luxury hotel.
Yeah.
I mean, and it definitely didn't end up becoming that. And I think it just had to do with the area, the surrounding area.
Well, but that's the thing, though, is that do you think that because there were like victims or people who went there and said, you know what, I am going to unfortunately unalive myself, but I'm going to do it here because there is Skid Row, or there is this area of crime and drugs and homeless people. So here's a perfect place to do it.
No, I think that things like that happen in hotels in general, honestly. But I think, yeah, because of the area, there's probably more appeal from that hotel to do something like that. I mean, there has to be statistics somewhere that say like this stuff happens in other hotels. It's not The Cecil isn't special in that way. There's tragedies in other hotels.
But because they were so frequent, it got the nickname Suicide Hotel because they were happening one right after the other, with maybe like 9, sometime 10 years apart between jumpers. But it was becoming so frequent.
Hmm.
To me, that screams curse.
Okay, so you know what Skid Row is, right?
Yeah, yeah, yes, I do.
Okay. It's a 56 block area in LA. It's one of the poorest areas in the entire world. Okay. It's got a huge, deep history of drug problems and mental health issues and crime and homelessness. It's unfortunate. They wanted something luxurious, but the area just didn't allow that to happen
Mm.
because of the homelessness problem. They literally, like in the 70s, they used that area almost as quarantine. They
Yeah.
got all the homeless, all the criminals. It was a dumping ground. More bad things are going to happen to that hotel just because of that.
So I don't think we can sit there and say why, Skid Row came about to be where it was potentially located.
I
There's
wasn't saying
really
that.
Well, I'm saying there's no rhyme or reason as to why Skid Row is located to where it was located, next to the Cecil and the 54 blocks, correct?
56.
56 blocks.
Pay attention.
But oh, I do feel that not one person sat there and went, "Hey, I'm gonna go unalive myself because of Skid Row, because of this." I feel like there's an energy. I feel that Skid Row added to that energy, absolutely. But I think permanent scar was left there.
I'm sorry. Did you
And
not hear uh, the mental illness issue with the
yeah,
area as
yeah,
well? How that's a
absolutely.
huge problem?
But the funny thing is about that
Unfortunately,
is that the people who had mental illness who were living near Skid Row didn't go there to commit suicide. People who literally came from across the world came and unalived themselves. Whether they had mental illness or not, they were not affiliated to Skid Row.
no. But I mean, you've seen the place. It could have
Yeah.
just been that depressing.
Yeah,
I mean, and as somebody who suffers with depression, I feel like I have the right to say that
absolutely.
because an area can really, really influence your mental health.
Yes.
So location matters with that kind of thing.
Yes. But I also feel that, some of these people who have literally come from either the central area or even as far as the East Coast who travel, they sit there and say, okay, I'm going to stop at the Cecil. This is where I'm going to go. It's got great reviews, whatever. And then they're like, you know what? I'm just going to jump off. Do you think Skid Row influenced that? Or
I
because
think
you're
it's
saying
impossible
location?
to determine what influenced that. I don't think there's quite an argument there because it's impossible to determine why each person who took their life at the hotel did it. So
Well, there are certain cases that, a lot of these people checked in under different names. So they went there with a purpose. And I do feel that that purpose was to unalive themselves. And I feel, that had nothing to do with Skid Row or anything like that. I think it was almost like a calling, a place that
I,
they had sat there and went, look, this place is calling to me. There's something about it. I'm going to add to it.
I think it's very presumptuous to claim that you think that they chose that spot for a reason or it was the place itself that caused them to take their own life. They all had their own stories. They all had their own issues, their problems. How they ended up at the Cecil, the stories could vary. I do not think all those people just sought out the Cecil specifically to do that. And I don't think you could ever prove that they did.
You're right. I can't prove that. I don't feel that they sought out the Cecil necessarily. I feel that when they were there, well, okay, scratch that. There's something about they checked in under false pretenses with the idea of doing something. They did not want, and then even some of them left haphazard notes. Some of them, there was the one gentleman who bequeathed his entire fortune not to his wife but to some random lady that no one knows to this day who that was, and everyone said, well, why? Unfortunately, we'll never know the answers as to why, but
I
I feel there's a paranormal source.
and I feel like you're completely disregarding the fact that people take their own lives in hotels all the time. And it might have happened a lot at the Cecil, but I don't think it happened a lot because of paranormal reasons. I simply don't.
Now, there are reports of shadowy figures and cold spots at the Cecil. Do you think it's evidence of spirits or of a building in disrepair?
Oh, definitely disrepair. Unfortunately, it was a huge hotel and it was understaffed and clearly not maintained over the years. I mean, even now, people have really horrendous reports about the living conditions there. So, yeah, it's definitely just a building falling apart. It was made in the 20s. I don't think a ton of renovation has happened on it. I mean, there's still shared bathrooms and stuff like that. So I really don't think it's been that touched up since opening. And there's just a ton of problems with it. Mold, roaches, and mice. And then they don't have the money to get it repaired. And I mean, it's just an old building. It's really old. And I don't think it's gotten the appropriate amount of love that a building that size needs since it was built.
I You know, there's part of me that does agree a little bit with you. I do think sometimes when you have
Well,
cold
thank
spots in
you.
a building, you're welcome. I do think when it comes to if we take the idea of cold spots itself, could that be, if you were in a hallway in the Cecil and you feel a breeze come through, could that be patchy walls? Could that be a broken window? Absolutely, 100%. But if you were in an area of the building to where there are no patchy wall, like if you're in the basement and you've got a cold spot that you're determined with a thermometer, not just with your body. What's causing that? Not necessarily disrepair. If you're taking photos and you're getting weird cast shadows that look like people on a wall, I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, well, look, there's a loose tile. That must be what's casting a shadow like person on the wall. Must be that loose tile because of disrepair.
Doesn't mold make you hallucinate? I don't know if this is true. I really need this fact checked. Does if you
Mhm.
inhale mold long enough, doesn't it actually make you hallucinate at a certain point?
I believe it depends on the mold. I believe black mold does that.
Okay, so our fact checker, Bree, just told me that mold can make you hallucinate. So, I
Over
mean, I haven't
prolonged periods.
over prolonged periods and people were residing. I mean, it's
But
low
those
income
people aren't the
housing.
ones. Yes, but those people aren't the ones reporting of strange shadow figures that they've taken pictures of.
I'm sorry, do you know all the people reporting that stuff?
And
Can
if
you give me a list of all the people reporting?
well, for example, you have paranormal investigators that have been in there, such as Zach Baggins, Richard Eastep. These people who have not been in there for prolonged periods have captured evidence with their sources, with cameras and all that kind of stuff. That we are seeing physically.
I mean, I haven't seen shadow people evidence, so I'm just going to think that it was a
Yeah,
hallucination for now. And also, investigators, now correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't have a ton of experience investigating, at least not as much as you do.
yeah,
But isn't it kind of normal to interview residents or people that have experienced things living
mhm,
there and such?
yeah, yeah.
You don't know if those reports are just coming from investigators. They could be coming from residents who have been living there a long time and breathing that disgusting moldy air and then dealing
True.
with psychosis.
So, Rob Hernandez, he is a paranormal investigator and he spent his first time there in 2011. And he stated that when he originally called to make a reservation and he was just kind of making small talk saying, hey, I'm a paranormal investigator, they hung up the phone on him. So he realized that was a mistake. No one wanted to talk about it. So he
Yeah,
called
well,
back, made a
of course
reservation, and
they didn't want that. They were trying to rebrand at the
mhm,
time.
yeah.
So, of course they were going to be avoiding having paranormal investigators come in.
Well, when he actually stayed there, when he got the reservation, he tried to talk to what little staff there were. He did make note that there was just a desk clerk and there was a bartender, and that was really about it. He said that he saw maybe one or two other people kind of walking around, but no one would really talk to him about anything dealing with paranormal. And he said he did try to talk to guests who were staying there as well, but no one wanted to talk about it. Everyone either shunned him or just ignored him completely. So, this idea of interviewing people who live there or were once there, possibly suffering from psychosis, I say is kind of null and void because people didn't want to talk. People didn't want to talk about anything having
That
to do
doesn't
with there
mean
because
nobody
of its
did.
history.
I mean, even in the
Very true.
Netflix series, they were able to get a former resident who
Mhm.
who talked all about the conditions.
And I'm not arguing the conditions. There was a guy who wrote an article called Slum with a View and talking about how the lobby looks gorgeous. You can go online today and look at even before the renovations for when they did the stay on Main, how gorgeous the lobby was. But that was like the only place they really kind of maintained.
Yeah.
And everything else, it was like people, they talked about bed bugs. People slept on like sleeping bags on their
Mhm.
beds because of just the disgustingness
Yeah.
of that location. So yeah, I the place was horrible, but I, do feel that, what people are seeing, what they're experiencing is not necessarily mold or anything.
The Cecil has decades of suicides, murders, and overdoses. Does that concentration of trauma make a haunting more plausible?
Yes. 1000% yes. There are so many cases of people who have unalived themselves and they're still there. That tragedy that happens to the body itself, that energy is still left behind. It is still there. Sometimes it's like a loop, it's an echo. You are putting something out there into the ether and it just keeps repeating and repeating and repeating. And it's tragic. So yeah, I definitely feel that a lot of the suicide and the murders, I think that has left an imprint. Once again, it's left a scar and it's definitely manifested.
I mean, I don't think that. Big
No.
surprise. I know, right? I don't believe that it's haunted. Crazy. Yeah, a lot of tragedy happened, but a lot of tragedy happens in other places too. And I mean, if that was the case, I feel like every single hotel on this planet would be haunted. Because
How do we know it's not?
because you're gonna go prove that right now? You wanna I'll wait.
I'm
Do
gonna
you wanna
check into
go do you wanna
every
go to
hotel,
every single
Eco
hotel
Lounge,
and see if it's haunted?
Motel 6 is absolutely yes.
It's cool. I got
We'll start
time.
with the
I'll wait.
we'll start with the Clown Motel in Nevada.
Oh, I'm going to that one. That one just sounds fun. Anyway, what were we talking about?
Do you think the idea of people who have self-harmed themselves in this location has basically made it haunted?
I mean, there's been self-harm, there's been not self-harm where other
Yeah.
people were causing harm. I mean, but then again, area, high crime rates. It sucks a lot of tragedy happened at the place, but I mean, I just think that's just made the area worse, not really, caused more of a haunting, in my opinion.
But do you feel that just even leaving all of that negative energy into one space, I guess I have to ask, like, do you not feel that cannot manifest itself into something more?
I mean, I think it could influence how people see it upon entering, just knowing the history. I could see how that could affect somebody who is there. I think the history and the stories from there could mentally affect how a person sees the hotel. And it could
Interesting.
feel like an energy, but I think it's just perception based on knowledge of the place.
And I guess, like, what about the people who have, because we talk about other paranormal investigators themselves who've actually been into the Cecil, and we have Zach Baggins had stated that he believes there are dark energies that dominate the hotel. He did an interview with the Den of Geek. And he says that he's been to a lot of places throughout the world, but when you walk through the doors of the Cecil Hotel, you know there are other doorways to other worlds. If we were to see deeper dimensionally, we would see all these other doors and rooms, and I believe it goes way down into the earth and draws a lot of energy through the earth. It is then magnified by the dark energy and criminal activity of Skid Row and amplified by the rituals of Jack Unterweger and Richard Ramirez. Ooh.
Okay. um, that was a mouthful.
That is such a great response. But do you think that these energies, like you said, they can influence certain things?
Zach Baggins, for example, knew everything going into the place. He knew all the
True.
tragedy. He knew all the stories. He knew where they happened in the hotel. That kind of just
So you think the predisposition, basically, of knowing helped influence his feelings?
yeah. Yeah. Also, he had a special to sell. So of course he's going to make it sound like the scariest fucking thing he's ever experienced.
Yeah. Well, Rob Hernandez pointed out that have you ever been into an area that you just feel like crying? that just there's an overwhelming surge of you don't know why you want to cry or why you feel the way that you feel.
Yeah, a graveyard.
Now,
A
but
graveyard
that
makes me
just,
wanna cry.
yeah. But is that because you feel that you're already influenced by what graveyards represent?
It's because I know there's a lot of people who are no longer living there. So I would feel that way about any area where I knew that a lot of people lost their lives. If there was a tragedy, yeah, that's going to give me a certain perception of the area.
So a test for you is
Um,
to take you into a location blind and see if you experience an emotion that you can't explain.
yeah, you wanna do that right now?
Well, I mean, yeah, I would love to do that right now, but we can't do that right now.
Maybe
I'm just saying for
look,
future, that would be a good
oh,
experiment
for
for
the
you.
future, sure. Let's
Yeah.
do it. Let's try it.
Okay.
Do you think Pigeon Goldie's spirit still roams restlessly in the Cecil?
We'll let Jess take that one first because explain to us Pigeon Goldie a little bit.
Oh, you want me to explain? Okay. Goldie Osgood, also known as Pigeon Goldie, was a retired telephone operator and a very well liked long term resident of the hotel. She was known as Pigeon Goldie because she spent her days feeding pigeons in a nearby square or park while wearing her, I guess she had a signature LA Dodgers cap that she was seen wearing a lot. Unfortunately, on June 4th, 1964, her body was discovered. Her room was ransacked. She had been beaten, raped, strangled with a hotel towel, and fatally stabbed. Her Dodgers cap and birdseed was, all over the ground near her body. And I don't I think she stayed on the 7th floor, I believe. She lived on the 7th floor. But yeah, no, I don't think that this poor woman is roaming the hallways. I just hope she's resting in peace. I This story makes me so sad. One, because they never caught the guy. It's almost like every time I think of this story, I can't help but imagine the the lady from Home Alone 2,
Oh, Lord. Yeah.
the homeless woman from Home
Yeah.
Alone 2. And it's like, I can't help but picture this horrible thing happening to that woman. It breaks my heart that this happened to anybody. It's such a heartbreaking story. And I just think it's a very unfortunate thing in a long list of things that have happened at the hotel. And
And I agree with that sentiment 1000. I do feel that she is still there. And not only do I feel that she is still there, I feel that the energy that had happened, it's still there. It's like an echo. What was manifested is still there. And there's evidence to support that, at least. There is a lovely woman by the name of Joy Johnston, and she runs a website called the Memories Project. And she talks about a story that her father would tell her, and she basically posted this on her online forum called the Memories Project. And it's about those living with Alzheimer's and how we want to keep those memories alive. So her father um, shares this terrifying experience. She states that her father lived at the Cecil in 1965. He was a young immigrant from Northern Ireland who needed affordable accommodations near his workplace. He'd been staying at the Cecil for some time with no unusual incidents to report until one night he woke up to the sensation that someone was smothering him. He described it as a heavy pressure weighing down on his chest and throat, as if someone was sitting atop him. He gasped for breath and tried to fight back, but it felt like his entire body was paralyzed by an invisible but strong presence. Then, as soon as it began, the feeling dissipated. Her father ran downstairs to the night clerk and explained what happened, and the clerk just kind of nonchalantly explained that, oh, yeah, someone died in that room. And then we come to find out that that was actually Pigeon Goldie's room, and he had stayed in that room. And uh, Richard Estep makes a comment about, hey, this could have been a night terror, right? Like we've all experienced those. Occam's razor, the simplest point is that out of all the rooms in the Cecil, he stayed in Pigeon Goldie's room. And he had been there for multiple days with nothing to report until this incident. And so once the story was posted online, other people had responded stating that they had stayed at the Cecil on the 7th floor. They never stated that they were physically in Pigeon Goldie's room, but they had stated that on that floor, two of them out of like the 7 stories that were put out there, that they also woke up in the middle of the night to feeling a pressure upon their throat and chest. So I think that is evidence right there that what happened to Pigeon Goldie, whether it's Pigeon Goldie herself or it is the violent crime that happened to her is still there manifested.
God, I really hope she's not there because she deserves better than having to haunt that shitty ass place.
Well, there's the idea that, like a lot of ghosts, maybe she would like her murder somewhat solved and she can't move on until then. Or maybe she doesn't even know what happened, unfortunately.
Do you think the Cecil has more of a paranormal reputation because of the serial killers that stayed there?
Yes, I do. I think that people look at the crimes of Richard Ramirez and Jack Unterweger and they sit there and say, well, these guys murdered people. They were doing terrible things. There's the whole thing about Richard Ramirez devil worshiping on the property. But what we know is that he got high in his room and blared a whole bunch of heavy metal music. Now, he did state that if he was devil worshiping, but there's no evidence that he physically did it at the Cecil. But so I think, yeah, it is definitely the idea of, yep, you had serial killers there, they murdered people, bam, haunted.
I'm going to go with a big fat no on this one. I think they chose that location because of a reason, but it wasn't because of anything paranormal. I don't think they were drawn there. I think they chose it because they could be more anonymous there and they could hide under the chaos that was
Mm,
already happening in the area. Richard Ramirez, people say he chose it because it allowed him to come and go without scrutiny.
correct. Yep.
He would get rid of his bloody clothes in the alleyway by the hotel, but there was no murders at the hotel. They used it as a place to stay, not as a place to commit their heinous crimes. Of course, they weren't going to commit crimes there because people knew they were staying there. They did all their stuff in other places. Um, Richard Ramirez went there because of the convenience of it, and then Unterweger went there because Richard Ramirez went there. So it wasn't some paranormal calling. It was convenience. It was a way for them to do what they wanted to do and get away with it easier.
I agree. As Richard Ramirez was a low income, and that was a place that he saw with the crime with Skid Row and everything, and said, this is a location to where it would be easier for me to stay. Now, with what you said about Unterweger choosing it because of Ramirez, there was no factual behind that I'm aware of. It was once again this idea. Now, personally think sensationalism. Unterweger was quoted as a saying that he really enjoyed what Ramirez did. Unterweger posed as a journalist for the Cecil. He said he wanted to do a expose on the Cecil.
You're incorrect. While he was staying there, he did pose as a journalist,
Mhm.
but he pretended he was working for an Austrian magazine researching the terrible conditions of American sex workers. It had nothing to do with the Cecil specifically. It was
Gotcha.
because of Skid Row and
Gotcha.
because sex workers frequented Skid Row.
Yes. And that was also Jack Unterweger's like specialty, essentially. Like that's who he murdered was sex
Yeah, that
workers.
was his thing. And he did bring a couple women back to the room, but he did not commit any crimes there.
Correct, and it makes 0 sense to do it actually because the
Yeah.
bodies were found in different locations, so it's like, what, you're gonna kill someone in your hotel room and then drag their body out through the front door or the side door and then take them, but also the facts show that some of the 3 victims, I believe 2 of the victims were found so decomposed that police reports show that the bodies had been left there. They were murdered there and left there
Mhm.
due to the decomposition, so we know that Jack Unterweger did not murder physically in the hotel.
Yeah, apparently he would bring them to, like, remote locations
Yeah.
to commit the crime, but he would return to the Cecil afterwards.
Yeah, but I agree. I don't think it was a calling of any sorts
He wasn't there for that long. I mean, I know Richard
before he was
Ramirez was
caught.
there for a year, I believe?
3 years.
He lived there for 3 years, Richard Ramirez?
Yes.
Okay, and then but Unterweger did not live there as long.
No, Unterweger, because he was just released from jail in Austria before
Mhm.
he came to the States, and, that was the thing is that he literally kind of picked up where he left off, essentially.
Yeah, it was just for the summer, right? So it was probably like a month or
Mhm.
2 or
Yeah. But he definitely spoke about kind of idolizing Richard Ramirez.
yes.
I don't know if he necessarily picked the place because of Ramirez or because of the fact that there were a lot of sex workers that he could
I'm
murder.
pretty sure he did say that it was
Oh,
because it was because of Ramirez. I could be wrong
Oh,
though.
he did?
He did.
Okay, our moderator says yes. And it doesn't surprise me, because look at the sensationalism that happened with Ramirez.
Yeah. Can I just say, just to get it out there, they're both pieces of shit. Um, I I hated having to learn about the horrible, evil shit both of these people did.
Do you think they're haunting the Cecil?
I hope not. That's too good for them. Just like it wasn't good enough for Goldie, it's too good for Ramirez and Unterweger. I hope they're suffering just like they made other people suffer.
Do you agree with the claims that the Cecil has violent entities or dark spirits conjured by Richard Ramirez?
No. One, because I don't really believe in that stuff. But two, yeah, Ramirez would frequently leave pentagrams at his crime scenes, usually drawn in like lipstick on walls or even the bodies themselves. But there are no official reportings of those markings being found in his room at the Cecil or anywhere on the property. I feel like that kind of shows he wasn't doing that there a little bit. I think the whole devil worshipping thing when it came to Richard Ramirez in general was kind of BS. I think he might have been. I'm not saying he wasn't into that stuff. He was probably into it, but I think when it came to the case, he was probably using it more as a way to seem insane than as an actual practicing believer. He just seemed like a phony. He seemed like somebody who wanted to appear like they did devil magic. And remember, no devil magic in the house.
No devil magic in the house. That's why he did it outside the Cecil.
That's why he did it outside the Cecil.
Yeah.
Um, if you don't get that joke, listen to our previous episode. But yeah, I think it was a front. I think he wanted to come off a certain way, and he just used it to kind of give this perception of a evil, devil worshipping, cool dude, which is ironic in itself. But yeah, that's what I don't think so. I think he was full of shit. So
Well, I feel when we go into that idea of Richard Ramirez, he was a well-known devil worshiper. This is what he said, that the reason why he committed these heinous crimes, he felt that he wouldn't get caught because he was the devil's son and the devil would protect him. And
well, Daddy didn't do a very good job, did he?
oh, no, he did not get, but he gave him cancer. He started a lot of this stuff at a very young age. Unfortunately, Richard Ramirez had a terrible upbringing with things that had happened in his life. And a lot of people suspect he felt drawn to the teachings of Satanism because of the power that it influenced. It was a limitless power that was really intoxicating to someone like Ramirez. When we talk about the idea of him practicing this at the Cecil, oh, you were 100% right. And they talked about his room. His room was ransacked a lot. It was filthy. It was dirty. There was stuff thrown everywhere. People sat there and said he would blare what they called devil music or heavy metal music of that time. And he would smoke a lot of weed in his room.
That's just what I was saying, though. It seemed like this persona he was just kind of
Mhm.
putting off. It didn't seem genuine. It's almost like he thought it made him attractive or something like that. But no.
A product of the time. I personally think, like, due to his upbringing and due to the influence of what people believe that Satan can bring, I feel that he felt that he believed he was a real devil worshiper. But as far as there being evidence that he literally practiced anything, there was this rumor that he had pentagrams on the roof, and that drew into the whole Elisa Lam thing. But there was no correlation. Like, there was no physical evidence with pictures or crime scene photos that he did any of that in the Cecil. He talked about it, but once again, sensationalism. Once he was
Mhm.
caught, he became this big thing, and there was a lot of sensationalism with the media, and he loved every bit of attention. You can go back and watch news stories and interviews, and he loved it. He loved the attention. So yeah, I feel that he felt that he was a real devil worshiper, but
I
I don't think he necessarily did it at the Cecil.
I really dislike him. Even his nickname, even the name they gave him is
The Night
so
Stalker.
fucking cheesy.
That wasn't even the original name. They were giving him like other names prior to that. The Night Stalker is just what stuck. And you're right, it is cheesy.
It's so lame.
Yeah. And how he got caught was also that. I guess that to me, even how he got caught was by a 13-year-old boy who saw him driving in the neighborhood casing a house, and the boy reported the vehicle and all of that. But it was this idea of like he literally thought he was going to get away with everything because he didn't care really about covering up anything. It showed this idea that he really thought The devil will protect me. It does not matter.
Yeah, well, daddy didn't do shit for him.
Oh, daddy.
Daddy Satan, bad.
And this is why you don't practice devil magic in the house.
Why do you think floor 7 has been a hotspot for tragedy?
Well, that is a very good question. I can't necessarily state what what is the attraction to floor 7, but what we do know about floor 7, it is largely comprised of just like the guest rooms, but it has been the location of multiple suicides throughout the building's history. We know that there were a lot of people who had stayed there who either jumped from floor 7 and or went to a higher floor to jump, but their room was located on floor 7. We know Richard Ramirez stayed on floor 7. And there was also a very unfortunate incident. It was across from Richard Ramirez's room that happened much earlier in the Cecil's history of the woman who had a child. Yeah,
I
unfortunately, she
hate this
thought the
story.
baby.
It's so
I
sad.
know. And I won't get into too much detail about it, but as you know, unfortunately, she had the child in the bathroom and thought it was stillborn, and yeah,
Discarded the
yeah, she
baby.
discarded. Thank you. But she was on the floor. She was on the room across from Ramirez, also floor 7. So a lot of stuff have happened on floor 7, and there is something I will talk about later. I won't mention it now, but later on, there's something that I will bring up again about floor 7.
Well, I think there is a lot that happens on floor 7. I agree with you in that capacity. I don't think it has anything to do with spirits or the paranormal. How many floors was the Cecil? How many floors?
14.
Okay. So that was the halfway point,
Yeah.
basically. There were residents that said the higher up floors were the more dangerous floors, especially people who wanted to jump. That's where they're going to go. They're going to go up. And also, it takes longer to escape from any type of violent crime. Now, I also know that when they made Stay on Main, they separated the floors. So floors, I believe 4 through 6 were for the hotel, for the stay on main
Mhm.
floors. But then on floor 7 and up was the past tenants that they lawfully had to keep
Keep.
there.
Yeah.
Yes. I just think it had to do with where the floor was. It was
Mhm.
halfway up. It's where they separated Stay on Main with the former tenants of the Cecil. Of course, bad things are going to happen from that floor up.
Well, I also find it very interesting that once Stay on Main happened, that's where they had the cutoff, whether it was halfway or not. But even, like I said, people who were staying on that floor went higher up to jump. I just find it very coincidental. And in my world of paranormal, I don't really believe in coincidences. But I will give something to your benefit, Jess, to your side. And I say this because I want you to hug it and own that. Is that Robert Hernandez, when he stayed there, he actually ended up getting Ramirez's bedroom on floor 7. And he said it felt like any old room.
Ha!
There was nothing weird about it.
Oh, yeah. I'm hugging that. I'm hugging that close.
And he's a paranormal investigator, and he kind of went in there expecting to maybe have this energy like we've talked about of maybe Richard
Hmm.
Ramirez or whatever. He said no, it was musty, and he said the floor didn't feel any different than any other floor. So I got to give
Wait,
props where
what's that?
props are
What's that
due.
guy? What is that guy's name again?
Robert Hernandez.
Robert, thank you. Thank you for proving my point and making this debate easier for me.
At least with that bedroom, okay?
No, okay,
Calm
at least when
yourself.
it comes to that bedroom.
Now, to talk about the Cecil's most famous tragedy, Elisa Lam, what do you really think happened to her?
Oh, you knew this was coming, Colin.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of the saddest stories I've heard, but I believe what they reported for the most part, based on all the research I've done about the case and the conspiracies. And my God, is it a rabbit hole to fall down?
Yes.
There's so many conspiracies and theories about this case, and I understand why. Um, there's a lot of curious aspects of it, and the fact that it happened at the Cecil does not help anything. But yeah, I think she was a very troubled young woman because of her mental illness and being under medicated because she wasn't taking her medication. I think she suffered a manic episode with her bipolar disorder. She actually had bipolar 1. Bipolar 1 is way more intense. It can cause hallucinations and stuff. I don't know if she decided to take her own life, even though there's lots of reports of her being severely depressed and having suicidal thoughts. Regardless, I do think she got into that water tank herself and got stuck. Now, there are things I can't explain about it. There are things that still make me scratch my head about it a little bit.
A little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I might have understated that, but in the end, I just think she was a sick girl who found herself in an unfortunate place and made unfortunate decisions because of her illness and ended up where she did.
What do I think really happened to Elisa Lam? There are so many paranormal elements that have come from this tragedy, unfortunately. Things that I cannot explain, things that I have tried to do research upon that are just kind of coming back inconclusive. Like I said, there are all these paranormal elements to it, but I also like to look at the facts, like with her autopsy report and the blood work. Uh, earlier you had stated that she was off her medication, but her blood work reported that there was still some medication in her system.
Yes, that is true. Very low levels, though. Also, they counted her medication and
Mm.
discovered that she was very behind on taking it.
There's also because the proof is that when she first checked into the stay on Main, she was reported as having maybe a manic episode. There was something going on already with her checking in. There was the issues with the roommates.
Yeah. I don't know if that episode happened when she checked in or it just happened in the lobby in general.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I know there was an issue with her roommates, where they complained about her behavior. And so the hotel took her and put her in her own room the day before she was supposed to check out.
I found some very interesting paranormal elements to this.
Have you?
That I have. Now, here's the thing, right? They are just ideas, they're theories, they're kind of thrown out there all over the world. But do I necessarily believe in them? I don't know, but they're fascinating to me that I have to bring up, right? The one thing that I sit there and I go, okay, this is super bizarre. Lisa Lam stayed in room 514.
Mhm.
In China, rooms marked 514 are avoided to stay in as it's connected to suicide and death. And we know Elisa
Wow.
Lam, yeah, she was, her and her family are Chinese. They live in Canada, but they still practice their heritage. There's just weird things about it. But staying in room 514 and having that, what's that translated into Chinese is super bizarre, almost coincidental. I guess we should say. There's also these comparisons to the Dark Water movie, all that kind of stuff that I'm like, okay, we're
Oh
reaching. But
god.
I know, but there's another really interesting element here that I don't necessarily know is taken out of context, but it's interesting because one of the last reported places that she was seen aside from the Cecil was a bookstore that was located right next door. And if you go to their website, they have a domain number on their website. And what people have done, they have put in that domain number that is on their website into Google Maps. Where that takes you is the cemetery where Elisa Lam was buried in Vancouver.
I
That's
mean,
bizarre.
who thought to do
But
that though?
yeah, true. I've never, I don't know, but is it a very bizarre, creepy coincidence, same as the room 514? I believe so.
Okay. So what do you think happened?
Well, I think there were paranormal elements to it. When we look at the footage of everything that was going on in the elevator, we see her acting erratically, almost speaking to someone. I
Mm.
personally feel, because we can get into that just a little bit later, but I personally feel that Elisa Lam was in a state of mind to where she was coerced by something possibly in the Cecil. Whether people want to believe it's Richard Ramirez or something that maybe Richard Ramirez summoned, it was just another suicide tacked onto a list of countless suicides prior to that. And the way that she did it is not common in psychology for women. Women are usually either jumpers or pill takers. And you have this girl who went to the roof and threw
Well,
herself in.
I mean, I have a thought about that because,
Yep.
by the way, a lot of my information comes directly from the Netflix series because they just have so much information in that series, a little too much at times, I think. But one of the things that was reported, one of the lead homicide detectives in LAPD, Greg Kading, I think is how Kading or Catting, one of those is how you say it. But he said that Elisa's own sister said that one of the things that she would do during an episode is get really scared and she would try to hide. So she would crawl into little spaces and she would hide under the bed or hide, just she would hide probably because of the psychosis and hallucinations and delusions, because that stuff can be scary. And also, going back to the whole undertaking the medication, that in itself is really dangerous.
Yeah.
I can speak personally because I'm on antidepressants, and I actually found out one of the ones she was on is also one of the ones that I take. And I can personally attest that, especially when you have to go through the whole game of finding the right antidepressant for you, withdrawals on antidepressants are no joke. It's very serious. You should not stop them cold turkey. You're supposed to wean yourself off of them because there's a lot of health side effects that could happen. So I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised if the manic episode was caused because of the turmoil that the withdrawal was having on her body because she stopped taking her medication, and she was on quite a few of them. So
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what that was doing to her in itself.
I definitely think that plays a part when you go into the idea of the whole kind of like possession. And to me, that kind of plays this part that she was already down. So once again, we kind of have this identification, escalation, demonic obsession, demonic oppression. She was already
Mhm.
in that mind state of, being in that oppressed state. And I think easily something in the Cecil could have taken hold. There's another thing. I wasn't sure if I was going to bring this up, but we're kind of going on this idea. One, let me just say that what you just said with her hiding in small spaces really kind of took my breath away. I'll be honest with you because that I'm just kind of putting myself in those shoes of how scared anyone could
Yeah,
be to think to crawl into something like that
yeah.
is mind blowing to me.
Mhm.
So you've definitely blown my mind there a little bit. But there was something. So did you hear about the spray paint that was on the side of the? It was on one of the windows.
One of the windows.
Yeah, one of the windows that is on the roof that goes, I don't know if it's like an attic space or whatever it is via there, but there was some Latin words that were spray painted. They speculated that these words were actually spray painted roughly a year before Elisa Lam took her life or accidentally drowned.
I did not hear that.
So the words that were spray painted were fecto, I won't say this word, it's CUNT, her summa. And that translates to, in fact, she was a see you next Tuesday. Now, the reason why people talk about this is because Elisa Lam's last Tumblr post prior to her taking her own life stated CUNT. Again, it was odd how men use that word to demean women when it was the only part of a woman they valued.
Yeah, because she
So
was she was complaining about people
how
catcalling her and men were making her uncomfortable and
correct. So in my mind, I kind of play with this idea that this was something she had wrote on Tumblr. She was being catcalled. It was, all of this. And if she's in this manic state, whether it's manic, whether she's also has the paranormal element to it, of something speaking to her, she had seen these words and went, that's exactly what it is. That's what I am. That's what this is. And led up to where she ended up. It's just a running theory that I've read about. I'm not necessarily saying it was paranormal, but in my mind, it's once again some sort of eerie coincidence that led up to her death.
actually, hearing you say the words, I'm pretty sure I saw that in the footage. I think I saw the graffiti you're talking about and just
Mhm.
looked at it and was like, "What?" So I didn't know that that's what it meant. I mean, I hope it happened before Elisa, because if not, that's incredibly disrespectful.
But it was dated 2012. I guess there was like kind of a date on the bottom of
Mm,
it that was
okay.
2012. But once again, it's this really weird coincidence. Also, there's another thing. She was an Aquarius. What's an Aquarius in astrology? Water sign. How did
Oh,
she
you're
die?
really going there? You're bringing this to the
Yeah.
zodiac table?
I am because it's a coincidence. It's such a weird, bizarre coincidence of things that aligned in her life.
So, are you saying, like, you basically think that it was paranormal?
Oh, that I can't answer that fully and honestly. And I know that sounds bizarre because once again, I look at the scientific part of my brain and I look at all the facts, but I also look at the paranormal part of my brain and I said there are way too many coincidences here. Way too many coincidences. And then
Mm.
also it's the Cecil And I do understand that there was a whole bunch of sensationalism prior to the Cecil, but
Mhm.
I do understand that she was kind of going out on kind of a solo adventure type deal uh, at 21 years old.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that this was a place that you would want to take your life respectively. So I tend to think that there was something a hidden demeanor, whether it was the paranormal aspect of the land of that scar, I think played a role. I do. I definitely think the paranormal played a role in this.
Do you consider the Elisa Lam elevator footage to be paranormal?
Yes, I do. I have studied that footage until my eyes bled, I feel.
I've watched it a lot too. Yeah.
I looking at the footage itself, yes, is it grainy in certain elements? Absolutely. One, I'm surprised they actually had a camera in the elevator. Regardless, the most popular theory is that Elisa Lam was possibly playing the elevator game. And for those not familiar with the elevator game, I do not recommend doing it first and foremost. I just think that any time that you play with something that someone could say demons could happen, just don't play with it. It's I don't know. That's just me. This is the reason why they put warning labels on things because people have done it. So basically, what you're supposed to do, it has to happen on a building that has a minimum of 10 floors. You go in, you hit a series of buttons in a particular order, and then when you get to the last one, which is the fifth floor, after the series of buttons, you will encounter a mysterious woman. Do not look at her, do not interact with her in any way. The consequences of engaging with her are said to include the possibility of never returning to the real world. Now, people look at the elevator footage and they tend to think that Elisa played the elevator game and encountered the mysterious woman and interacted with her. It's so weird because I look at that footage and I look at, the way she was interacting with someone and then she was hiding. She would go on the elevator, off the elevator, on the elevator. She would have all these erratic hand movements. There was someone that she was speaking to and or hiding from. And that to me kind of screams the idea that there was something or someone only she could see, whether that was in her head or whether that was truly paranormal. I think given the history of the hotel, I do think it is paranormal.
Yeah. Interesting. How do I say this? I don't think paranormal had anything to do with this.
You don't?
I gotta get creative. I mean, it's a lot of me just saying, "No, I don't believe that." I don't think she was playing the elevator game, dude. I'm so sorry. Like, because I heard you just explain it and stuff like that, and she doesn't do any of that in this 4-minute video. She does none of it. You just see her get on and push the buttons,
Well, that's
but
because people
she
think it
stays.
happened after. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but people think it's after she's already done the series of buttons. She's already encountered the woman.
There's no record of that. There's no footage of that. This was the only footage they were able to get of her. And it was this, I mean, I know it's a 4-minute
Yeah.
video, but she was only in it for 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
But the elevator didn't go anywhere. It was on the 14th floor,
She pushed a
you
series
know?
of buttons again. And I just, to me, I find that creepy that she pushed these buttons and the doors would close, they would open and wouldn't go anywhere. It would close again. She would stick her
Okay.
arm
Well,
out.
it's in again, I'm gonna reference Netflix again. Get ready
Sure.
for it. You
Yeah.
ready? So this YouTuber named John Lorden, he's started his channel
Mhm.
because of the Elisa Lam case. And he actually went to the Cecil and went to the exact elevator and tested the hold door open button and found that when you pressed it, it would hold the door open for 2 minutes. Now, you say the door opens and closes. There's only one moment where it goes to close, but then it doesn't.
Yeah.
It immediately retracts. When it comes to her talking to somebody, I kind of agree with that, but I don't think it was paranormal. Yeah, there was a lot people discovered about that video.
Mm.
In the Netflix special, they talk about the web sleuths that broke it down and analyzed it, and they found that the video was slowed down 35%.
What?
53 seconds were missing. The timestamp was distorted, and there were video jumps. Now, the other lead investigator on the case, who's in the docu-series a lot, is
Uh-huh.
Tim Marcia, and he says that no alterations were made by the hotel. They also had excuses for the other ones. Greg Kading said that the time code was blurred on purpose
Mm.
to keep that information away from people,
Understandable.
that the video was slowed so Elisa could be better identified.
Understandable. Because she was a missing person.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm with them on a lot of it, but I'm just when Tim Marcia said that the video alterations were not made by the hotel, I have a hard time believing that. And it's because, okay, it's the timing of it all, right? Unfortunately, like this all happened when they were seriously trying to rebrand this place.
Yeah.
And then you have Elisa, who they were very aware of at that point, causing disruptions. She was leaving notes on people's beds and stuff like that. It would not surprise me if around that time they told employees to watch her, to keep an eye out for her. So I think there's a possibility that the video could be cut because they were trying to protect
Mhm.
somebody at the hotel because they don't want that reputation anymore. Could have been hotel staff, but it also could have been just a passerby that was going to use the elevator and then saw her behavior and had that interaction with her and then just chose not to and walked away.
Mm.
I don't know. There's a part of me that's just is convinced a little bit that the hotel did have something to do with the alterations on the video.
If the Cecil had never gone viral because of Elisa Lam, would we even be having this conversation today?
Probably not. I mean, like you said, Brie, it's definitely the most famous case at the Cecil. I mean, it does have a history, but I think this is the one that kind of sent the reputation of it overboard. And it's so unfortunate. It really is. That this mentally ill young woman has become this sensationalized story to support these crazy claims about the Hotel Cecil and it being cursed and it being haunted. In the end, it was just a young woman who loved art and Harry Potter. You can see all this on her Tumblr page, the Nouvelle Nouveau. She was very open about her mental health and her depression, and she admitted to having suicidal thoughts. She clearly was not in a good place, and honestly, I wish she had ended up anywhere but the Cecil. I
Mm.
feel like she would have gotten more help somewhere else. I don't even think we would be talking about the Cecil if it wasn't for Elisa. What do you think, Colin?
I think we would be. I think the Cecil already had a horrible reputation prior to Elisa. Really, after Richard Ramirez, after Jack Unterweger, they kind of stopped talking about the Cecil, which is why they rebranded. But unfortunately, obviously, the case with Elisa, because prior to Elisa, there was a body that was found in the alleyway. They assumed it was a jumper. Never really discussed. There was also another body they found closer to the front end of the building that they assumed was a jumper after Elisa Lam that they never really discussed. And
Yeah.
I think that with the history that it already had, it was just such a long time span of I don't necessarily say that it was going in a good direction, but it was going in a direction that was not south of what it was after Jack Unterweger. And then unfortunately we have everything with Elisa Lam because they weren't reporting things that were basically happening. They were just going, well, another jumper, sorry. And then just moving on because people were unfortunately used to it.
It was the bizarreness of the case
Yes.
that got people attracted.
Yes. If Elisa jumped, it would have just been a name and a paper, you
It
know?
would have been, unfortunately. I hate to say
Very
that.
unfortunately.
It would have been.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But because there was this weird disappearance, because there was this video, because of where she was found, all of those contributing factors made it more popular
Yeah.
and made it more interesting to people. And nobody was getting answers. I mean, it took the autopsy report a long time to come out.
Originally, he had also said that it was suicide, and then he crossed it out and said accidental trauma because he was keep going back to all of the things that's taken him so long.
Oh, yeah, you're talking about the little X out stuff on the bottom
Yeah,
of the okay. So, yeah, because apparently it's dated differently, right? There's one that says
it
the
is.
18th and one says
Yeah,
15th.
because
Untrue. If you look close, I'm sorry, I got really
it's
excited
okay.
about that.
It's okay. I love your excitement.
If you look close, it's an 8. It's just faded.
Okay.
In one of the little things to
Mhm.
connect the 8, it didn't draw completely, but you can see the line of where it was supposed to be.
Yeah, I could be wrong because originally I saw the autopsy report on something that we had watched, and then later you had shown it to me. But it was something about how they had ruled it as one thing, and then later
Yeah.
on they went and redid it and crossed all that out, and people were like, "That's bizarre," and it was like they just reinvestigated. It was reopened.
Yeah, no, people went crazy about it. It was literally just 2 squares of I think one was accidental and the other one was couldn't be determined or something
Yeah.
like that, and the person who did the report, his name is Dr. Jason Tover. He was the assistant deputy medical examiner at the time and was interviewed quite a bit in the Netflix series. He was very believable when they asked him
Mm.
about the X out and stuff, and he's like, "Look, accidents happen," and he's the one who pointed out that it actually says the 18th, that it's not the 15th. He said, like, "Yeah, we had to make a note of it, but it was just an accident. I just marked the wrong side of the paper."
Yeah.
And I believed him. He came off as very believable, and I know the police and even him were kind of dragged into this conspiracy of being, like, paid off, but I believed the dude when he said that.
Yeah. There was a lot of pressure. There was a lot of pressure on them about getting this done as quickly as possible because of everything that was coming out about it.
They couldn't not because of toxicology, because that stuff takes time, and there was a lot of stuff they couldn't determine until that toxicology report came in, and
Mhm.
that took a while.
Yes, absolutely. It did. This could have been preventable, but with the sensationalism of what the Cecil was, I think it was moving in a better area. And then, Elisa happened, and it was just the stamp of death, no pun
Yeah.
intended, on it. It was just the nail in the coffin, no pun intended. I'll stop, I promise.
You gotta stop, dude.
You know, yeah, it was just the tombstone on the grave. Okay, I'll stop. We're
Stop!
done.
We don't talk about death enough, you need to add to it? Like, come on.
Some dirt over the plot.
Oh my god, can we talk about something happy, please?
Speaking of the Cecil window, right across the street lived Pete Montzingo. He was able to capture some evidence, some paranormal evidence specifically. What do you think of that?
First of all, when it comes to Pete, I have to say, I think he's adorable.
We love you. Listen to our podcast.
Oh my god, I have to say this before
Yeah.
I get into the paranormal stuff, but I've seen his other usual content with his mom and his family and the funny pranks and the incredibly kind things he does for to lift his family's spirits, and I am obsessed with that stuff. With that said, I looked at the evidence, I've heard the stories. I know one of the more popular ones was definitely debunked when it
Yes.
came to he had footage of this girl who was standing in a window and they said they were filming, but he didn't see any cameras and stuff. I know that he used to stream from across the street and people would see things in the windows, but honestly, all the things I looked at, a lot of it looked like window reflections, if I'm being honest. I know he had one incident where he woke up in the middle of the night and there was a man who was smoking a cigar on the 7th floor. Back to that again. Another 7th floor story. And I know that this wasn't his usual content. I know he kind of just stumbled across this, but none of the stuff he got to me was that convincing. But he did do a lot of research and they hated him there. He would have these battles with the Cecil where he would leave like stickers. Loved that stuff. Yeah, I can't say the evidence he found was that convincing, but I definitely enjoyed his content about it. I will say that he did his homework. He knew a lot about it, and he was constantly giving updates about the building in general. So that aspect I really appreciated. But as far as the evidence goes,
So, yes, the very first story that I found about Pete was definitely the one about the lady in the window. He was on record as saying he never saw her leave, any of that stuff. And it was really bizarre. But then, of course, we saw that footage in the Zach Baggins Ghost Hunter special that he did. But the one story, obviously, that I found as well. Now, when he was live streaming stuff like that, you have to remember that there was no one in the Cecil prior to this because it was closed due to the reconstructions and then due to COVID.
Yeah, that's what they said though, but is it really that far-fetched to think that people
People broke
still
in.
managed to get into it?
It's not. No, not absolutely. But there were people reporting that they would see lights that were on inside the building when it wasn't even supposed to have electricity on certain floors because it was not being used. Now, what floors those are, I don't know if he or his viewers knew.
I did see some of the light stuff. It honestly looked like cell phone lights. Like it looked like
Hmm.
somebody was turning on their cell phone and the screen was kind of
Yeah.
going on and off. Like that's kind of what it looked like to me.
Yeah. Well, the one story that he has that you had briefly touched on was that he woke up. He said it was probably around 3 a.m., which, by the way, in the paranormal world, 3 a.m. is kind of our bewitching hour. But he claims it was roughly around 3 a.m. and he got up to go get some water. And he just happened to look out his window and see a man smoking a cigar on the seventh floor. And he said what was really weird about it, which first he thought this is obviously a real person, maybe someone broke in. But he said the weirdest part that really unnerved him was that he had zero lights on inside of his apartment. And he thought to himself that if he just walks by his windows, if this guy follows where he's going without being able to see him, then this is real. Because originally he thought to himself, maybe this is a dream, maybe this is like whatever. But he said when he went from window to window, this guy's head physically turned and watched him go window to window to window. But he had zero lights on in his apartment. There was no way anyone could physically see him. There are no lights outside that reflect down or anything such as that. So he said that was what convinced him that it was definitely paranormal, was that this person was following him with their eyes.
Maybe it was just a creepy guy with insanely good eyesight.
He was Daredevil. He was hearing the sounds of Pete walking, and he could see it like sonar.
What is his name? Matthew Murdoch? It's really far from Hell's Kitchen there. Oh my God, we're such nerds. Oh my
I
God.
know, it's true, it's okay. Hey, we were Comic-Con, but, maybe this guy was part cat. But look, is the possibility that someone has just kind of broken in? Yes, but at the same time, if I broke into a location that no one is supposed to be in, I'm not gonna go outside and smoke a cigar on, like, the fire escape area. I don't wanna get
I
caught. Why would I do
Why
that?
not? Who the hell's gonna get you? If you're if you're up on the 7th floor.
Cops? You
But
know,
if you see them coming through the doorway, like, you got time to to get away.
look, listen, followers and such, I do not recommend going into abandoned buildings or abandoned locations, but I've done it, and it can be scary because of cops, but yeah. I think what Pete has is factual.
And I don't. Sorry, Pete, but nah.
What did you think of the Ghost Adventures investigation of the Cecil and their findings and evidence?
Well, okay, look, on a personal level, I think Zach Baggins is a really cool person to hang out with. But as far as television is concerned, when we deal with the paranormal, I find some stuff a little hard to believe. But in this instance, I thoroughly enjoyed this investigation because some of the evidence that they caught really blew my mind. And it was evidence with electronic equipment that really got my brain going. Like Zach stated that the Cecil was messing with him and his crew, and one of the investigators was having like rage fits. It's not something he normally does. I don't know them personally, so it's not like I can really attest to that, right? To me, that's not evidence. But he was using an SLS camera, which I want one really badly. And an SLS camera is basically a camera that will pick up a figure or being with little stick men. It picks up an anomaly essentially is what it is. So the SLS camera footage to me was really cool because we have Zach about to go into the elevator. There's nothing on the camera whatsoever. And then he backs out, door closes, he hits the button again, and then bam, we have an anomaly on the SLS camera. It was not there before, and this was literally seconds. So I find that fascinating.
So when you say anomaly,
Yes,
full disclosure to the listeners, Colin and I actually watched this special together.
we did.
He was very interested. I got a lot of laughs. Anyway, you're talking about like the stick figure thing, right?
Yes.
Where like a little weird stick figure shows up.
Yes.
I don't know. That part made me laugh because it does look like if there's shadow shape or anything that somebody's making, it looks like it really takes anything they could apply that shape to and they just do it. I don't know the inner workings of the SLS, but that's just what it seems to me. So that evidence wasn't as convincing to me as it was to you.
Yes. And I think that is because like I'm a huge fan of the SLS because of the technology where it detects an anomaly that was not on camera before. And look, there are apps out there that you can get and I've used them and I don't like them. Like I need the real technology. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of the SLS camera. I want one. Christmas time. Anyway, there was this other weird thing to where Zach had gone onto the elevator to go up to a higher floor and it stopped on floor 7. And he had shown that floor 7 had not been pressed, but they didn't really make too much about it. And then later on in the series, one of his other investigators was told to put cameras, still cameras, or park and barks, as I call them, in the elevator. It had also gone up to floor 7 without him pressing that. So once again, we kind of went back to this idea of floor 7 because that investigator sat there and went, wait a minute, like this also stopped on floor 7.
My God. People really love floor 7. So your thing was like the elevator kept stopping because like he played that game, right? Like he tried to play the game.
Yes. In the very, very beginning of the episode, he did. When the elevator stopped on floor 7, it was later on when he was trying to go up to, I believe it was one of the top floors.
I mean, is there any chance that this elevator just sucks at getting you to where you want to go? We've talked about how rundown this place is, how neglected it is. Is there any chance
It just stops halfway.
whatsoever that maybe there's some wiring issues with the elevator? And when he pressed one number, it said, nope, we're taking you to this one. That doesn't mean ghost did it. That could have just been faulty wiring.
The elevator's over there heavy breathing, like, I need a break, hold on.
Yeah, like, God, I need a break. I need a
We're
breather.
going to floor 13 or 14.
You're
oh,
so
God.
heavy, Zach Baggins.
We're stopping at 7. I mean, look, anything is possible. But the reason why I found that interesting was because of everything that we had found out prior on floor 7. None of what we discussed so far was mentioned in that special with Zach Baggins about floor 7. We had actually kind of put that together while researching other stuff. So that's part of my reasoning why I found it very interesting. And also on floor 7, they had caught 2 disembodied screams. Now, I know, actually,
You
go
know
ahead.
what I'm
Go
going to
ahead.
say, Colin, because I'm
Yes.
pretty sure I said this when we were watching the shit.
You did, yes. And I want you to say it now.
It's a city. It's in a city. It's not in the countryside with fucking horses and sheep, okay? It's in a busy ass city. Not only a city, but fucking Skid Row. Like, of course there's gonna be screams. Of course there's gonna be loudness. You know, like, come on, Colin.
Now, what I find interesting, though, is that both times that these screams were recorded on the cameras on the 7th floor, they showed us where they checked all of their other cameras, especially the one located in the lobby close to the front door, where no scream was detected. So my question is that if you have such great sound system or sounding on your camera that it's picking up a scream that is coming from somewhere off of Skid Row and it's all the blocks, how come it didn't get picked up on the ground floor?
What if, hear me out, what if it was coming from the building across the street on one of the higher floors?
True, but we also know sound travels. We know how sound bounces.
That's not a theory that I've thought of before. I literally just pulled that out of my ass. So that's a fresh take for you.
I feel that with sound bouncing, it would have been caught maybe on the 2nd floor or the 3rd floor where they had other cameras, but none of it captured any of just like other screams or anywhere else, just on that
I don't
floor.
know. Maybe they weren't as thorough as they said they were.
True.
You know yourself, as a paranormal investigator, you know yourself that it is so much footage to go through. And I know he has a team and whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Is it possible that, because sometimes mics on cameras too, they have background noise cancellation. So maybe the scream, wherever it happened, it was just closer to where that camera was. So it just picked it up better. I'm not implying somebody was floating on the 7th floor. I'm not saying anything paranormal. I'm saying maybe somebody was on one of the buildings in the area on a roof and they screamed because they were horsing around or
California.
or because an actual crime was happening or something. And then, it reached that camera the best because it was closer to it.
It is possible. We have worked with a lot of cameras. I've gone through a lot of footage, and I have to go, is that a car passing by? Once again, that's something that I think viewers can look at and listen to and go, well, that sounds definitely Scream to me, not anything else. Other such evidence, and some of these I know you're going to love. I know you're going to love them. They were in Pigeon Goldie's room, and they had caught evidence of an orb going down into the hat that they brought for Pigeon Goldie.
Colin, you know
You're gonna use the
how
D
I
word,
feel
aren't
about
you?
orbs.
You're gonna use the D word,
You
aren't you?
know, I'm about to use the D word. You ready for the D word? You ready for the D word?
I'm ready.
In an old, rundown hotel? You ready for the D word? Dust.
Yes. So on that, actually, when you have dust, right, does it fall one piece at a little time, or do you get multiples of the dust?
It depends. They're particles in the air. They can separate. They can come together.
So my question is anytime that we see dust or particles in the air, even when they're separating or come together, it's usually more than one, and they don't have a direction that they are pertained to go to. Unlike the footage where we see something start at the one corner, it does not break apart, and it goes directly to the hat. And it was one little piece.
It's possible it could have been a bug too, like a small fly or gnat.
Absolutely, it could have been.
Well,
I
there you go.
can.
Solved it.
Yeah.
Question over.
Is the idea that bugs obviously don't exist in this kind of environment? No. But I do find the directionality of the orb, where it was going to. I do find that it did not split off into many particles
Oh,
like
yeah, because
dust
it
normally
went down
would.
to
The Dodgers
the
cap.
oh,
Yes.
yeah, Goldie, yeah. Oh, yeah, because of her cap.
Yeah. And then there was the other piece of evidence where he had the box that was next to the cap where two orbs came down and one went to the cap and then the other one went to the
2 pieces of
box.
dust instead of 1. That answers your question.
Yeah, but they didn't split apart though. They came as two singular pieces at
They were
later
friends.
on. They
They
were
they
well,
were dust friends,
dust
and they were
friends.
like, "That's a cool hat. Let's settle there. That seems like a good forever home for us dust."
Well, I think one of the most interesting pieces of evidence, and I know because we talked about this, was when Zach was in the room that was occupied by Jack Godevager, and the sink turned on by itself.
Oh,
Yeah, and he had
the
so
sink.
the sink. He had a really
The
cool
sink that
piece
came on in the rundown hotel that
where you
has
have
been
to turn
neglected
the
for
knob.
years.
Where you have to turn, and that sink came on full force. It wasn't like a little trickle of water. It was full force. He was using a custom made spirit box, by the way, which
Okay.
was freaking awesome.
But here's the thing. Here's my issue because I saw that part too,
Yeah.
right? Because watched it with you when I wasn't laughing at it. So that part in particular, what bothered me about it is it looked like they had an angle that was there to show him and the water turning on without anything, but they didn't use it. So it literally cuts in a way where it kind of looks like he could have just ran over really quick, turned it on, gone back to his spot, and been like, oh my God, the sink. The way it's cut there
Yeah.
was suspicious to me. And they have that angle where you can see him, where you can see the sink, but they don't use that when it happens. They show the sink separately and then they show him freaking out.
So they had a camera in the corner of the room by the door that, as you said, it
Yeah.
showed Zach standing there at the table, which was your point of the
And then
triangle.
they
And
had the
then
doorway one that was showing, like, the back of him,
that
basically.
was so yeah, that's the one that I'm talking about. They essentially had one right there in the doorway that angular wise, it showed him facing the sink. And in the left hand corner, you could kind of see where the bathroom or the sidewall was with the porcelain of the sink. Now, he also had a handheld camera that he had attached, and that's what he was using to look at the sink. Because originally he had heard a clink or a noise come from that direction, and he pans it with his camera, and then the box goes off and says something, and then the sink turn. That's when we see his camera go, "The sink is on."
Yes, thank you for that breakdown of exactly what happened.
Well, you were saying that the one camera was definitely showing the sink. I didn't see that. I saw the porcelain base of the sink in the corner, but I did not see like the sink handles or the sink faucet or anything such as that in that picture. I just saw that Zach had a handheld himself that he
Mm.
would put down
I
or
mean,
attach
that's
to
what I
himself.
remember.
Yeah. But what you did say was correct. I also find it a little interesting, not necessarily interesting, but there were some weird cuts that were made for the purpose of television. Me going through my own evidence and stuff, I kind of cut out the boring stuff to make it look like something happened back to
But that's
back
not a
when
boring part.
I don't think it happened back to back is what I'm saying. I think personally that he heard a clink in the sink area, filmed it, and then he did all this stuff, nothing was happening, and then maybe minutes or minutes later it turned on and we cut it to make it look like it happened back to back. So, but you were right. The cuts were weird. There were some weird cuts. I will give you that.
Can we talk about the psychics?
Oh,
That's what I'm really
yeah.
wanting to talk
Absolutely.
about
Yes, please do. Please bring, yeah.
because, oh my God. So we had, what, 3 psychics in the episode?
Yeah,
We had Patty Negri,
correct.
Negri,
Yes. Degree, I believe.
Michael and Marty Perry, who were a couple, right? A married couple,
Yes.
at least at the time that they
Yeah.
filmed this. Okay, so I remember you had Patty in Roy Thompson's room.
Yes. Yeah. Roy Thompson was the man who had jumped, one of the men who had jumped from his room.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then she had a weird moment where she opened the window and they all thought she was going to jump out. And then I know the husband at least went to the rooftop, and I remember he made claims about devil magic. He made Satanism claims. He said that he could see a pentagram on one of the water towers.
Oh, I remember this part now. I like blacked it
Yeah, do
out, to be
you?
honest with you. Yes, I vaguely remember this part because it didn't seem genuine.
A lot of the stuff they did just made me feel like they knew exactly where they were and they knew the stories behind it. I didn't find that
Mm.
believable. I feel like they did their homework. Because Zach Baggins was like, "Oh, we're going to put them in this numbered room, but we're not going to tell them what it is." But they could know what it is. If they did their homework, they could know what it is because it's not difficult to find out the rooms that these things happened in. That information is pretty accessible, especially nowadays. And I know this was like 2020, right?
I was like 2019, 2020 because it was right at the height of
Okay.
COVID.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So when it came to the psychics, I was not impressed. I feel like they did their homework. They knew where they were at. They knew the stories they could play with. And they were fine with what they did. Honestly, I think Michael was the one that annoyed me the most with the pentagram on the water
Yeah.
tower because I'm like, "Ugh, here he comes with this Richard Ramirez bullshit and trying to stir this thing up again where when it's been like laid to rest for so long." But, other than that, it's like, whatever.
Yeah, so I've met Patty. And I've met Patty a couple of times. I say numerous, but a couple of times. I've done a couple cons where I've met her. Lovely woman.
Sure she is.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
not saying anything
yeah.
about their
No, I know
character.
that. No, I know that. But I do kind of agree with you in the sense that when you have a place as famous as the Cecil, you can't go into it blind. There's honestly
Yeah.
no way you're going into that location blind.
Yeah. And
I
honestly, out of all the experiences, to me, she had the scariest one
oh
when she
yeah.
opened the window and was leading out, and everybody was like, "You're not gonna jump, are you?"
I noted some inconsistencies that I will say when they put Patty in another room and she started talking about she felt violated, right? She kept saying, "No, please don't touch me there, don't touch me," and covering herself
Was
up.
that Patty or Marty?
That was Patty.
Okay.
And originally, they had stated that that was the room of Jack Unterweger. And it was this idea that maybe he had brought sex workers there to the room and that's what she was feeling. But later on in the episode, when they recapped what happened with Patty, they had said that that was Pitch and Goldie's room and that maybe she was experiencing what happened to her. So I will say there
Mm,
were some inconsistencies, and that's their editing team, to be honest with you. But yeah, there was just some inconsistencies that I did notice. I didn't actually look to see what room she had gone into.
mhm.
I don't remember if they showed us or not. It wasn't something that I had written down. But look, there was that really, really, really cool photo of where they were taking a photo of Patty in front of what looked like the elevator. And they were talking about this black spot on the floor that seemed almost shimmery or oily, that it didn't appear to be a shadow. It was too dark. And
I don't
why?
really
So
remember that one.
well, they were focusing on that, and then they had shown Aaron, who was the one taking the photos, had shown the photo prior to that, and there was nothing on the floor. They were taken seconds apart. But
Mhm.
in the background, in this doorway with a door that was closed, it was open, a little bit, there was a figure and no one could explain where this figure came from. And I thought that was really interesting.
Now for the final question, the big question.
The big question. You want a drum roll?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't play the
I can't
drums.
do it. I give up.
Now, would you spend a night alone at the Cecil Hotel? Why or why not?
Well, I have my answer. And that's, how do I say this? Hell fucking no. And it's not because it's haunted. It's just because it's not a good place to be. It's dangerous. There's lots of crime on the streets, crime in that place. So like, no, I don't want to spend a night there. Who would?
I would.
Oh God, I knew you were going to say that.
But here's my thing is that if I had obviously masks and sleeping bags and all that kind of stuff for my safety,
Are you going
right?
to wear a hazmat suit? Because I feel like that's what you need.
I maybe, yeah. But honestly, I feel that as such a big believer in all of this, as a paranormal investigator, I would be an idiot to pass up the opportunity to stay the night at the infamous Cecil Hotel. Obviously, I would want to have precautions such as a hazmat suit, maybe a police officer outside to make sure no one's breaking in, all that kind of stuff.
Well, as the person who goes on these investigations with you,
Yeah.
this one you will be doing solo. Sorry about it. FaceTime me while you're there, please. No, I think it would be interesting to go there. I wouldn't want to spend the night. I would be interested in just because it's so historic. I wouldn't mind seeing it for sure. But no, I don't think you could pay me to spend a night there.
Could you spend the day? Because here's my other thing is that paranormal doesn't necessarily happen at night, right?
Maybe in the lobby. Maybe I would stay there in the day in the lobby because the lobby is the nicest part of the whole fucking place.
But I mean, if you could be in like a hazmat suit, rubber gloves and all that kind of stuff, would you still explore the
Ooh.
location?
Can I get a bulletproof vest or something? Actually, no, instead of the hazmat suit, I'm going full knight armor. I think that's the only way.
No EVPs
stay
for
fully
you because you're going to be
protected.
clanging up and down the hallways.
Or maybe I'll wear the hazmat suit underneath the knight armor. There you go.
You should wear it over the knight armor to
Over the
look
knight armor?
over. Yeah. Yeah, to look even creepier walking down the hallways.
Whichever one looks better.
I would spend the night but probably not sleep.
I wouldn't mind investigating, but I mean, to investigate, you would probably have to bother the people that reside there, and I'm sure they don't want that. And we're not encouraging anybody out there to go and try.
No,
You shouldn't.
They won't let you in.
No, absolutely not. But yeah, it would be interesting to see it. But I have
Yeah.
no desire to stay there. I'll go somewhere else, and I mean, it's LA. I'm sure there's another hotel that isn't as
You could stay in Pete's apartment across the street, across the alleyway.
I would stay in Pete's apartment across the street. I absolutely would. Honestly, that place, he
looked
made it
really
look
cool.
pretty nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a nice loft. I've always wanted a
Yeah.
loft. I love the idea of no walls and open living. I don't know. It's very New York, very bohemian chic.
Ugh, love it. Are we off topic now? I feel like we've gotten off topic.
Before we go, do you have any final thoughts on the Cecil Hotel?
I think, honestly, the story of the Cecil Hotel is just unfortunate because you can see what they wanted it to be. And unfortunately, I don't think it ever really became that. The many, many tragedies that have happened there are just awful, but I don't think any of them were because of the paranormal. I honestly, when I think about the Cecil Hotel, I don't get scared. I just get sad. It makes you think about the horrible state of this country, especially with homelessness. And it makes you think about how mental health is still not being dealt with correctly. And it just makes me think so many sad things, especially when it comes to Elisa Lam, because she seemed, and I encourage anybody to go check out her Tumblr because it's archived. You can go still see the posts. She was a lovely person. She was smart and artistic and introverted. and so honest and open. Oh, I feel bad for her family being dragged into this media circus and seeing all of the speculations and the theories. And then they sued the hotel, but the judge ruled in the favor of the hotel, so they didn't even see justice in that. I know we're talking about it, but overall, I hope the people who have had to deal with this place, have suffered from this place, are able to put it behind them and just live happy lives because, my God, what that place put people through. It's a tragedy, plain and simple.
My final thought, a la Jerry Springer, on all of this is, I feel that there are very real places such as the Cecil that can really manipulate how you think and feel. I think there is such bad energy there that if you are not in a good standing point inside of your own head, can really make you do something that could potentially hurt yourself. So my advice to anyone, the believers, the skeptics who want to go to these type of locations to investigate, to see what they find, please, 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 please make sure that you are mentally fit. I think at the end of all of this, what we have seen from the Cecil is just mental challenges that people struggle with. And I firmly believe were manipulated with due to the terrible, darker energies that are still at the Cecil today. So I say be careful. Take care of yourselves, take care of others, love one another. Essentially, at the end of the day, love yourself.
Yeah, because we love you guys.
We do. We do.
We don't know you yet, but we love you.
I think the ghosts are still there. I think, unfortunately, when you have done something as tragic as unaliving yourself, it is a terrible thought to think that you are still there, lost in this place and not being able to get out and go wherever it is that you need to go. And I think that the Cecil proves that. I think that with the evidence that has been found at the Cecil, there are still victims, and that is what they are, victims of the Cecil still wandering its halls. So please, if you guys are out there doing this type of stuff, be careful, take care of yourselves.
And that concludes our debate, but the mystery is far from over. Now we want to hear from you. Are you standing with the skeptic, the believer, or are you still riding that haunted elevator somewhere in between? Send us your thoughts, theories, and your own believer or skeptic stories at paranormalbspodcast@gmail.com. Because sometimes the most unsettling experiences are the ones you live through yourself. You can find us at Paranormal BS Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And you can listen wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, keep an open mind, question everything, and never stop looking for what lurks just beyond the explanation.
Before we go, I want to talk about Shirley Raines. Shirley Raines was an American community activist. She was the founder of the nonprofit Beauty to the Streets, which provides hair and makeup services, food, clothing, hygiene, and safety items to thousands of homeless people in Skid Row, Los Angeles.
Unfortunately, Shirley passed away this year, but thankfully, her legacy still continues on to this day. We want to say thank you to Shirley and her organization for all that they do for the homeless community of Skid Row. So please donate if you can.
Now let's turn on the spirit box and communicate with the spirits of the Cecil Hotel.
Oh, baby, baby, how was I supposed
No, we
to
can't.
know-
We're not going to get into
What?
that right now, okay? This is
Why
not a
not?
radio. Brittany is not going to come across it.
I just want to listen
It's
to
going to
my
be a
queen.
Charles or a Madam or a
No
Bob.
fun. Is that her?
No, I think this is real evidence.
Goodbye.